in the same boat. Okay, so we'll start from the Mishnah on Daf Daled Amud Aleph toward the bottom. Bidna Rubish Pliny Shechayv Lechaverim Masayim Zuz. Two Eidim come and say, Reuven and Shimon, come and say, Shimon and Levi come and say that Reuven owes his friend 200 zuz. V'nimtzu zaym. And then Shimon and Levi were found to be zaym. Loikenu Meshalman. Shimon and Levi get both Makkos and they have to pay. They have to pay because kasha zamam, and as we're going to see, they have to get Makkos because of Leisana. There's the sheet of Rameir. Rameir holds, in addition to the chiyuv of kasha zamam that they get done onto them as they had tried to do, there's also a lav of Leisana. Well, and the Mishnah explains, Shaleishem mevi'il de Makkos, mevi'il de tashlumim. Divrei Rameir. Rameir says these are two separate things. You get that which they have to pay. That the 200 zuz is because of kasha zamam lasas la'achiv, and it's a totally separate lav of leisana that caused them to be mechuyev malchus. The Chacham say what's more familiar to us. Kol mashal ameina laika. Whoever has to pay doesn't get malchus. Torah says kasha zamam. That's all you get. There's only kasha zamam. There's no malchus. The Gemara is going to explain what their machlokes is based on. A similar machlokes. Meidnon abish plani shu chayev malchus abayim. If Shimon and Levi says Reuven did something, he was over on a lav, he ate chaylev, and therefore he gets malchus. The nimtzu zayim. And it turns out that the zayim like and shmeinim. The Edom zayim get not 30. We were saying Arbaim, but we really mean 39, right? That's Arbaim Chasarachas. They get the two Arbaim Chasarachas. They get two sets of Makkos. Mishum Loisana Barachet Shakar. Now the Mishnah is explaining what we were talking about before. According to Rameir, you get one because of Loisana, and Mishum Vasisim Lekasha Zamam. And the second one is because they were trying to cause Reuven to get Makkos. Divrei Rameir. V'chamayir mein loikin ela Arbaim. The Chamim again say he only gets one. There's no two malchus for his one action of saying Edis that turned out to be Huzam. So to Gemara. Bishlam al-Rabbanon, we understand the Rabbanon in the Mishnah very well. They say when two Edim say something and then there's Hazama, they only get what they had tried to do to the hapless victim, but they don't get a second edus they don't get a second malchus because of Leisana Bareach Eid Shakar, because the Torah says Kadei Rishasa, and we darshan Kadei Mishum Rishas Achasata Mechav Viat Mechav Mishum Shtei Rishuyas. The Torah says that in a Lashon Yachid, Rasha, he gets Kafiyas Rishus, and that means he only gets Kafiyas Rishus, but he doesn't get a second thing. El Rameya, my time. What does Rameya do with this pasuk? Kadei Rishasei. Why does he say by Edom Zaymim that he's going to get two? He's going to get in addition to whatever Kasha Zalm says. He also is going to get another Malchus. Amar Ula Gam Mimaitzi Shemra. Ula says that Rameya learns from Maitzi Shemra. A Maitzi Shemra is a man who marries a Naira, and then he says, "Oh, I found out that she was when on the night of the Chasna. I found that she was not a psula." That another man was born her while she was Mekudeshes. So Torah says, if we're saying this lie, it turns out that what he's saying was a lie, he has to both get Malchus and pay a Knas. So we learn that from Maitzi Shemra. Maitzi Shemra loiko Mishalim, just like a Maitzi Shemra, gets both Malchus, and he has to pay the Knas, Afkal loiko Mishalim. So too, according to Rameir, we learn that from there, that there's no preclusion. Kadei Rishasa doesn't stop you from getting both Malchus and Mammon. So tomorrow, how could you learn from Maitzi Shemra? Ma'ala Maitzi Shemra Shechein Knas. How could you learn from Maitzi Shemra, which is a Knas? And the Gemara at this point is assuming that Kasha Zamam, you're paying according to what you try to do. That's a compensation. That's not a Knas. A Knas is where you have to pay more than what you did. So the Gemara, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Akiva, who says Edom Zaymim is a Knas, like we saw before, and therefore someone who's Maida if an aid admits that he was an aid zaymim, he doesn't have to pay. So too over here, it's a knas, and therefore you don't have a kasha. So that's why Rameir says you can learn now from Motzei Shemra these Leikum Mishalim. Okay, that's one version of this discussion. The second version of this memra of Ula that says you learn out from Motzei Shemra is not talking about this Indian at all. It's talking about a different Indian. Some have the statement of Ula that says that we learn out from Motzei Shemra on a different topic, the Tanya. The Torah says that you're not allowed to leave over from a carbon past its time. Someone who does leave it over past the mandated time that the carbon is allowed to be eaten, the Torah says that you have to burn it. So this Brisa says the reason why the Torah says that you have to burn it is coming to tell you that it's a essay, it's a lav hanitikal essay. It's a lav that you can't leave it over, and the Torah is adding on, but there is an essay of what you should do about it, and it's coming to tell you, it's coming to tell you don't get Makkos. Any lav that's nitikal essay, the din is it doesn't have Makkos. So that's how we know that Noiser does not have it in Makkos. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Kiva Aimer, loy min Hashem uzeh. This is not correct. That's not the reason why Noiser does not have Makkos. Ela mishum dahavle lav she'en b'maisa. A totally different reason why Noiser, we're leaving over a carbon past its time, doesn't get Makkos. It's a lav without a maisa, without an action. When you're leaving something over, you're not physically doing anything. It's just it's neglect. You're passively not doing something. You should have finished it up by that time, and you didn't do so. But that's not a maisa. B'chol lav she'en b'maisa ain't like in love. So Rabbi Kiva says it's because of lav she'en b'maisa. Zaktimar Mechlal, the Yehuda Sava lav she'en b'maisa like in love. From the fact that Yehuda has to come on to the fact that it's lav hanitikal essay, do you see that he holds that a lav she'en b'maisa does get Makkos? Otherwise, why would he have to say because of lav hanitikal essay? It should be because of lav she'en b'maisa. Minole, where does he get this from? Where does he get that lav she'en b'maisa like an olav? The Gemara says we know that that's the rule. The rule is that a lav she'en b'maisa is not like an olav. So where does Ula get this from? Zak the Gemara, Amar Ula gama mimeitzi shemra. So there he says, this is the second version of Ula. Ula's saying it now instead of like we said before to tell you that an Eid Zayman, or for that matter anyone else, that you could be like Mishalim. He's saying that we're learning out from Motzei Shemra is a totally different din, that the lav she'en b'maisa is like an lav, because when someone, as we're going to see in a second, Zak the Gemara, Amar Ula gam Motzei Shemra. Not Motzei Shemra lav she'en b'maisa. Motzei Shemra is a lav she'en b'maisa. All he did was say that she was born someone, that she was mazana, but he didn't do anything. He didn't physically do anything, and still he gets Makkos. I'll call lav she'en b'maisa like it a lot. So that's his source. That's Rabbi Yehuda's source that lav she'en b'maisa is like it a lot. In fact, the Gemara, how could you learn out from Motzei Shemra? Ma'al Motzei Shemra shchein leikum mishalim. Like Motzei Shemra has its own special chumrah that it's unique, that it gets both Makkos and Tashlumim. We're not going now in that first pshat that was saying according to Rameh that you learn out from Motzei Shemra that everywhere it's like a mishalim. So it's a unique thing by Motzei Shemra. It's like a mishalim. So El Amarish Lakish, we can't learn out from Motzei Shemra to tell you lav she'en b'maisa is like in love because it has its chumrah. That's the reason why it's lav she'en b'maisa that's like in love. El Amarish Lakish gam meidim zayim. We'll learn out from meidim zayim. Meidim zayim lav she'en b'maisa. Just like Eidim zayim, it's a lav she'en b'maisa. An Eid doesn't do anything; he's just saying, and still like in a love, like we said, if he claimed that the ben grusha ben chalutza, ben grusha b'uchot, or a goliath. Or he said someone was Mochei Galis, or if he said someone's mechuyev edus. All these things, he didn't do an action, it still gets malchus. The Eidzayim gets malchus. Av kol lav shei b'maisa like love. Fragt the Gemara. No, how could you learn out from Eidim Zayim? Mal Eidim Zayim shechein ain't tzrichan hasra. Eidim Zayim also has a chumrah that there's no hasra on Eidim Zayim. As we know, if you think about it, right, you can't give an aid when an aid says his aidus. You can't give him aidus. You can't give him hasra. By the way, be aware that if it turns out that someone says you're in a makom pliny, that you're going to be mechuyev. You're going to be mechuyev for kasha zaman. I think the Rishonim talk about it, but it's a hasra suffix, right? You don't know that he's an Eid Zayim at that point, so how could you give him the hasra? Hasra has to be a definitive hasra. If you do this, you're going to be mechuyev, but we don't know at the time that they say the Eidus that they're Eidim Zayim. So you see that. So the bottom line is that, but there still is a din of kasha zam that the Torah talks about. So you see that Eidim Zayim applies even when there's no hasra. So Gemara might see Shemi Yechiach. So Gemara says, okay, but you're right. That's a kasha on Eid Zayim, but we could prove from Motzei Shemra, because Motzei Shemra that you need a hasra. V'chazar adin loy roizek roizeh v'loy roizek roizeh hasara shavash ben lav shem b'maisem v'loy kanulav avkol lav shem b'maisem v'loy kanulav. The chumrah of Motzei Shemra that it gets both malchus and mammon, and the chumrah of Eid Zayim that it doesn't need hasra. The other one doesn't have that chumrah. So between the two of them, you can learn out that a lav shem b'maisem is loy kanulav. Avkol lav shem b'maisem v'loy kanulav. No. Maybe the reason why lav she'em b'maisa, the reason why Motzei Shemra and Eidim Zayim are different than all other lavim, they could be chayiv even though there's no maisa, is because they're both a knas. So that could be a chumrah. That's the reason why you get malchus even though there was no maisa. So Gemara Holei Kasha, Yehuda maybe Rabbi Yehuda. So you're asking a kasha on Rabbi Yehuda, how could he say lav she'em b'maisa? Where does Rabbi Yehuda get from that lav she'em b'maisa like love? And you say you can't learn out from hasra, from Eidim Zayim, and you can't learn it from the Motzei Shemra from Matzah because they're both a knas. No, maybe he doesn't hold like Rabbi Akiva, who says that Eidim Zayim is a knas. Maybe he holds it's a mammon, and therefore there's no matzah. So the Elamai, the Rabbanim would say you can't learn it out because in the end, both of these things have a special chumrah. Now, that means that Motzei Shemra has the chumrah that it's both like a mishalim, and Eid Zayim has the chumrah of that it's ein tzricha hasra. Now, this is, of course, a big problem to say that you could ruin a me'atzad by saying that they both have a chumrah, because that's one of the shloishes esrei midas that the Torah is nidrish by. We know there is such a concept as a me'atzad. So if you say they both have their own chumras, that ruins a me'atzad. You can never have a me'atzad. So Taisa says that no, these are special chumras. These are chumras that are unusual chumras. That a Motzei Shemra is like a Mishalim, and that a Eid Zayim doesn't need Hasra. Those are things that are exceptional.
So I just want to clarify that Motzei Shemra does not need Hasra.
Motzei Shemra does need Hasra. Eid Zayim doesn't need Hasra.
How does Motzei Shemra Hasra work? I mean, the guy is getting married. They tell him, it's out Suffolk, don't be Motzei Shemra.
No, they go and he says that he starts spreading the word that his newly married wife was Mizana, and the Eidim tell him it's not true. What you're saying is not true, and you're gonna get Malchus, and then you're gonna have to pay if you insist on saying this.
But he already started saying it, so the Motzei Shemra, like the bird is out of the cage. I don't get this quasi state of Motzei Shemra. I mean, it's what does that mean?
Trying to understand if the reason is because it's that it's a hasra suffix, why isn't Motzei Shemra also a hasra suffix?
Right, it's both Hasra Suffolk.
Well, I don't know that. I mean, this is a there's this. Leave me. Let's put aside even the question of hasra suffix. Maybe hasra suffix is good. The point is, but there's a Gemara that says that directly that there's a limud that a eight zaymim does not need hasra. Let's see the Rashi. Rashi says this. Eidim zaymim main trichan hasra b'ksubas amrin and time up elunaris natribu amos. With the way I understand it is the question is when are you going to give him the hasra? But everyone else does need a hasra. So you do need a hasra for Motzei Shemra. You're asking how would it work? And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the technical aspects of how the hasra works. But you'll see the tais. Maltzar v'shencha yesh bahen sad chomer zein tzarich hasra v'zeh loikem masham. The tema do ein zeh per chashava. They're not both the same thing, and therefore l'chayra it would drag up the whole concept of a tzar hashava. Pirush the parach shechein hem mishunim biyoyser misham malkis shein tzarich hasra. Misham misham malkis. Why yesh laim shechein yesh bahen sad chomer shein loiken al yom shaloi. Yeah, well, that's a different question. It's a very strange thing that they don't need hasra, and it's also very unusual that they should have both Makkos and Mammon. Okay, but the bottom line is, I'm asking to your question. I don't know the answer to precisely how you would make it a hasra to a Motzei Shemra, a man who's about to say about his wife that she was mizana. L'chayr, the Edom would have to tell him, don't say that. It's lashon hara. That's what he's doing. He's saying a false thing about his wife, and he's saying it in public. So maybe they see he's about to go to the microphone and make an announcement. They tell him, don't do it, or you're going to be mechoyev. I don't know. But in any case, Rashi is saying clearly that there's a specific pasuk that tells you by Edom Zaymim it could be you don't need hasra.
It's a gzeres hakosov.
Yeah, it's a gzeres hakosov. Even though Rashi says, I mean, we'd have to remember the Gemara in Ksubas, and I vaguely do remember that it's because natri b'hu emes. When are you going to give this hasra by Eid Zaymim? You don't really have an opportunity to do it before they say the Eidus. If there's someone there who's saying the Manu Yisem b'makom pleni, they shouldn't say the Eidus at all. The Bezin shouldn't accept their Eidus. So when exactly are they giving them this hasra? They're saying you with us until they say the Eidus of what they saw. How could you give them a hasra that you with us in someplace else? Unless they they said already what their Eidus was going to be. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda tzad chomer leparach. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't like this whole concept of a tzad chomer, even with Taisis's addition that it's talking about an extra unusual chomra. Rabbanan halisan berechet shaka my darish bay. Now the Gemara is going back to with their chaylik on Rabbi Yehuda. They say Leisana is not telling you that Eid Zaymim gets Malka. So what is it telling you? And we need that, although the Torah says an einish, right? This is we found it over the last couple of Masechtas. The rule that in addition to the Torah telling you what the punishment for doing something is, the Torah also has to directly say, don't do it. So they would say this is the Azhara, this is the warning not to say Eid Zaymim. So then where does Rabbi Meir get it from? If he's saying it's a second einish, in addition to the einish of Kasha Zamim, it's all telling you to get Makkos. The Torah says those who are left over, those who hear, they'll hear about this and they'll be afraid, and they're not going to do such a thing. They won't say false edus. Rabbanan, homibaya leila hachraza. Rabbanan say, no, that pasuk is coming to tell you a separate thing. That's coming to tell you that when someone says Eidim Zaymimin, says Eidus that becomes Huzam and they get the din of Kasha Zamam, there's a special din in the Torah that it has to be announced publicly. For Meir Achraza Yishmu b'Yiro Nafka. May would say the Torah says Yishmu, everyone should hear it and be afraid, and then it says V'lo Yisipun Oid. Lo Yisipun Oid is extra, so that's a Nazara. Zok the Mishnah. Mishalshlin b'mammon ve'ein mishalshlin b'makkos. When someone says Reuben, let's say Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda all said Edus that Reuven stole $150. So the din is they have to do kasha zama. It turns out they're Edom Zayim. They have to pay $150. The Torah says, so the Mishnah is saying, Mishalshlin. They divide it up. That Shimon pays 50 and Levi pays 50 and Yehuda pays 50. They divide it up amongst the three of them. They Mishalshlin Makkos. But if they all said that Reuven is a Kayin who's the son of a Ben Grusha, he's a Ben Grusha Ben Chalutz, then it turns out that there's Zayimim, then they get each get their own Malkus. You don't say each one gets 13 and a third Malkus. Okay, so how does this work? If they said Edis about Reuben that he's mechuyev 200 zuz, v'nimtzu zayim, mishalshem b'neim. They divide up the cost amongst them. But if they said that Reuben is chayiv 100 malchus, he ate chaylev, and then he's v'nimtzu zayim, and it turns out there's zayim, each one gets malchus for their own. What does this come from? Amar Abaya, Nema Rasha b'chayve malchus, Nema Rasha b'chayve misas bezdin. He says the Torah used a lashon by Chayve Malchus. It says Vayim bin Hakoisha Rasha v'Pila Shayvi Kol Lefonav Kedei Rishasai b'Misvar. That's where we have the Chiyav of Malchus, and it says by Chayve Misas. It says Leisikul Koifel Navish Retzech Asher Hu Rasha Lamus Kimoish Yumas. Ma Lahalon E Misa Lamechza. And just like we say, if there's a din Al Kasha Zamam on Misa, obviously they can't be split up amongst the Edom. I'm sure as much as they would like, they would say I'll take a third of the Misa. We don't have the ability to divide up Misa. So Avkane Malchus Lamechza. So too, the Malchus, each one gets a full Malchus. Rav Amma says a different pshat. Amma being in Kasha Zamam last Alka. He says no. Yeah, the reason why each one gets the full Malchus is because they were trying to impose Malchus on the other, so they also have to get Malchus. So Gemara Hachi Mammon Nami. Why don't you say the same thing on Mammon? Each one should have to pay the full 200. The victim should end up with 600 shekel, 600 zuz. So Gemara Mammon Mitzdarus Malchus lo Mitzdarus. You can't compare it. It's no comparison. Money, when they each contribute their share, the guy ends up whole. He ends up getting kasha zama. But you can't say one person's 13 and a half makas goes together with another person's, and therefore each eid zaymim, between the three of them, they ended up getting 39 makas. That's not the same thing. And they say svarus about it, that also like 13 makas is not a third of 39. Each one gets worse. It's the one on top of the other. So if you're trying to give someone 39, but each one getting 13, it's not going to be kasha zama. This is the rule we've come across a number of times. We're on Hey Amid Aleph by the Mishnah. Dovi, good to see you. The din of Edom Zaymim only applies when the person himself gets huzam. It means it can't be on the testimony. You can't have new Edom come in and say that this person's Edus was false. They have to say that this person wasn't there. Yimano Yisem Amal complain. Ketzad, how does this work? The Mishnah explains. That let's say Shimon and Levi says that Reuven killed someone. Amru lahem heichata me'idin sharei nereg zeh ayahireg zeh yimanu oisayim b'makom pleni. And now Yisachar and Zebulun come in and say to Shimon and Levi, how could you have said this? But Reuven was with us in a different place. Or the person that you're saying he killed, he was with us in another place. Ein elu zaymim. That's not zaymim. That's not an eid zaymim. Because that's not about the eidim themselves. That's about the eidus that they said. But if they would say, if Yisachar and Zevulun say Shimon and Levi were with us at another place that they claim to have seen this Edis, Harelu Zaymim. Then they're all going to In that case, they're going to be Zaymim, and they're going to get Makkos because of what they said. So let's say after this is what happened. Shimon and Levi said the Edis, and then Yisachar and Zevulun came and said that no, Shimon and Levi were with us in another place. But then another pair of Edom came, a third pair, Ephraim and Menashe came. And the same Yisachar and Zebulun say, no, Ephraim and Menashe also in this Makom Pliny. Afilu Meya, even if this happens 100 times, no matter what Edom come to say that Reuben killed someone, the same Yisachar and Zebulun keep saying, no, they were with us in another place, Kulam Yaragu. They all will get killed on the basis of the Edis of Yisachar and Zebulun. Yehuda says no. Istata Sizu. This is very suspicious. This is some kind of conspiracy. You're not going to kill them based on the same Edom. Keep on saying everyone was with us in another place, except for the first group, the first two Edom. The Gemara is going to ask, what sense does that make? Why should the first one get killed and not the others? If you're saying it's conspiracy, you shouldn't trust anything we say. The Gemara is going to end up saying what it means to say is unless there's only one pair of Edom that Yisachar and Zevulun said Imanu Yisem, then the first one get killed. But once they start, whoever shows up, a second pair comes and says, and they say Imanu Yisem, then at this point we're not going to distrust them. Saktimar, Minohani Mili. Where does this come from? That Edis has to be, Eid Zaymim has to be where he says Imanu Yisem. It has to be where he's saying that the Edom, something in the gufa of the Edom. Sheker Anna. Achit Shaka Gufa Shal Edis. Torah says he ate Sheker Eid. The Eid himself is an Eid Sheker. Sheker Anna, he tried to say Sheker. But so it's when the fact is saying Eid Sheker Eid, it has to be in the Gufa. Achit Shaka Gufa Shal Edis. Until the actual body of the Eid is proven, is demonstrated to be an Eid Sheker by the Eid Zaymim. The baby Shmuel Tanal Anis Boisara. The pasuk says, "Ki yakum eid chomus beish l'anis Boisara." When a aid comes to say that something is different than the way he said it, Acha Tisra Gufa Shaledis. So we understand l'anis Boisara that he himself has to be proven that it wasn't true that he was there. It has to be in the Gufa of the Edis. Okay, but that's where the source is, that he has to be talking about the Edom themselves and not about what the Edom said. Amaram, Bo Shnai v'Amru b'Mizrach Bira Harak Plinius Hanefesh. If Reuven and Shimon come and say that, Shimon and Levi come and say that Reuven killed someone on the east side of this big building. Bo Shnai v'Amru v'Haloi b'Mayr Bira Imanu Yisem. But then Yisachar and Zebulun can come and say about Shimon and Levi, how could you say that you saw Reuben killing someone on the east side of the building, but you were with us on the west side of the building? Chazina. Then we check. If you're able to see from one side to the other, then they're not considered to be Zaymim. It's true that maybe they were on the west side, but they were able, the Edom Zaymim, these Edom, Shimon and Levi were able to see what was going on the east side. But if not, then it's as if they said you're with us with Chicago. If they're not able to see from that vantage point what was going on the east side of the building, then that's as if they're saying, Imanu Yisem, I'm not complaining. What are you telling me? It is obvious. If you can't see from there, then it says if, who cares whether you're 50 feet away or 1,000 miles away? If you can't see, you weren't able to see the Edis. So maybe you have to be chayshish that even though we bring the whole Bezdin and everyone, a bunch of experts in, and nobody could see. But since it's within physical distance there's nothing blocking you from seeing, and it's the same building, maybe these Edom have eagle eyes that they could see from far away. Kamash Malon. Vaistai says, nah, we don't assume that. I don't know why. You don't just take the Edom there and give them a test, hold up one of those vision tests and say, read the letters on this line. If they're not able to read the letters, then obviously they couldn't see what was going on the other end. Then they should be Edom Zayn. B'amar Rabba, Bo Shnayim v'Yamru, B'Sura B'Tzafra, B'Cha B'Shabsa, Horeg Plinius and Nefesh. Shimon and Levi say that in Surah, in the morning on Sunday, we saw Ruvain kill someone. Ubo Shnayim v'Yamru, B'Panya B'Cha B'Shabsa, Imanu Yisim Ben Hardah. And now Yisachar and Zvulun come and say, what are you talking about? How could you, Shimon and Levi, say that Reuben killed someone in the morning in Surah, but that night you were with us in Surah? So how could you have been in the morning in Surah and then the night at Nardah? So Zakmar Chazina mitzaf lepanya Motzei azal misura lenardah. If it's possible to travel in one morning from Surah to Nardah, then they're not Edom Zayim. They could say, yeah, we saw it in the morning and then we traveled. But if it's not possible to travel, then they are Zayim. Like the more again, Pshita. You might say maybe they had an extra fast camel, even though no one else could do it, they were able to do the trip. Kamash Malan, we're not chayshish for an extraordinary camel that could take them beyond what's normal. Two Edom come and say, on Sunday, Ruvain killed someone. Ubo Shnayim v'Amru, Imanu Yisim B'Chad B'Shabsa. And then two other Edom come and say that no, you, Shimon and Levi, that said about Reuben that he killed someone, you were with us on Sunday. However, in addition to telling you that Shimon and Levi could not have seen Reuben killing someone on Sunday, we happened to see that Reuben killed someone on Monday. Even if they say not that Reuven killed someone on Monday, really, unlike what Shimon and Levi had said. Yisachar Zvulun are saying that he killed on Monday, which was after the time that Shimon and Levi claimed. But even if they said on Erev Shabbos, on Friday, he was already dead. Neragim. In spite of that, Shimon and Levi, because they try to say about Adis about Ruvain, claim that he killed someone, and they were found to be Edom Zaymim because they weren't really there, they're still going to get killed. To be in the Kamasadi, Gavralav Bar Katolahu. Because at the time, we're assuming now that Shimon and Levi said their Adis on Tuesday, right? So they came and said on Tuesday that Ruvain killed someone on Sunday. And then later on, Yisachar and Zvulun come and say, at the time you said that Adis on Tuesday, it's true, at that point, Reuben was already dead because he had been killed. But you claimed that it was on Sunday, you were not there to see it. So you're Edom Zem. And even if they said he was already dead at the time that you're claiming, that you claimed he was dead, it's still, they're still going to be Edom Zayimim, and Shimon and Levi are still going to get killed, because Reuven was not going to, even he may have killed someone, but there was no guarantee that he was going to get killed, because as Rashi explains, the Reuven could have gone to Bezdin and he could have confessed. He could have said, I killed someone. And as long as other Edom have not come and made and testified against him, he has the option of being Maida. And once you're Maida, the Edom can't come and kill you. So by trying to say this false Edis, that Reuven killed someone, even though it's true that he did kill someone, but they didn't see it, they were going to cause him to get killed. So it's Kasha Zaman for them to get killed. So it comes out that in the end, Reuven's going to get killed because of the testimony of Shimon, of Yisachar and Zvulun, that he killed someone either on Friday or on Monday. That makes no difference. At the same time, Shimon and Levi are going to be killed for trying to get Reuven killed because they said Edus that wasn't true, and they were trying to get him killed, and he wasn't necessarily going to get killed for what he had actually done. Why do you have to tell me this? We already know from a mission that's going to come up in another blot that it's possible for someone to be mechoyev misa himself, and still someone else who says Edus about him to be mechoyev misa v'kasher zama. We say lefikach nimtzas achs mehen zay memes. The Mishnah later on says if that lefikach, when we have two separate pairs of Edus, nimtzas achas mehen zay memes, if there are two pairs of Edom that watch from different places, if one of the two pairs is going to be a Zaymim, hu v'hei neragim, both the Edom that were found to be Zaymim and the one, let's say, we're talking over there where there's a case where Shimon and Levi and Yisachar and Zvulun are both saying we saw Reuven kill someone. But it turns out that Shimon and Levi were not anywhere there. There were two other Edom that came and said that Shimon and Levi were someplace else. So both Reuven is going to get killed because of the Edus of Yisachar and Zvulun, as well as Shimon and Levi, because they're going to be Edom Zaymim. Tashniya Petura. Tashniya Petura, the Gemara is going to explain that it doesn't really mean that they're potter. What we mean to say is that we're going to believe they're Edus and they're going to kill Reuven based on what they said. But in any case, what we see from here is that there's such a thing that that you can have both the person who they're saying the Edus about be killed, as well as the Edom who are found to be Zayim and get killed because the Edus they said about him. So what is the Chiddush of Rava to tell us the same thing? What is this Brisa adding on to that? So the Gemara, Seifa, Masha Enkim B'Gemar Din, it's Trichale. We need it for the Seifa of that Brisa, where it says this is only true if the Edom, if Shimon and Levi had come and said that that Reuven killed someone, and then before there was a Gemar Din, another aide came and said that they're Edom Zaymim, but we saw that Reuven killed someone else. That's only if it's before the Gemar Din. But after the Gemar Din, I want to say Bo Shnaim V'Amr B'Chab Shabbos and Nigma Dina Shal Pleni. If Shimon and Levi, instead of saying that Reuven killed someone on Sunday, they said that there was a Gemar Din on Reuven that he gets killed. Ubo Shnaim V'Amr B'Chad V'Shabbos Imano Yisem Ever Shabbos Nigma Dina Shal Pleni. They say that before Shimon and Levi said their Edus, they said their Edus on Tuesday, that there was a Gemar Din on Sunday. Now this new pair of Edom came and say that they were lying when they said that there was a Gemar Din on Sunday because they were not over there. But there was a Gemar Din on Friday that Reuven killed someone. Even if they said that on Monday, it was after the time that Reuven and the Shimon and Levi claimed to have seen Reuven be Nigmar Dina Lamisa. Even so, since it's before the time that Shimon and Levi said their own testimony, they're not going to get killed. In that case, since it was already Gemar Din before Shimon and Levi said their testimony, their false testimony, they can't be mechoyev kasher zaman because he was already a dead man walking. He already had a Gemar Din on him. Because, like we said, in that case, he can't be Maida. Once there's a Gemar Din, Chayda is not going to help. The same will hold true Gabe Knas. It's not just the Gabe Misa. They said that he stole and he made a Tvicho Mechira. And Tvicho Mechira you have to pay Dahal Vehe, which is a Knas. Then they're going to have to pay because in that case they get Kasha Zama. They were trying to do it. And they at that point he could be Maida to a Knas and the person that's testifying could pat himself by being Maida. Even if it was on Erev Shabbos. So they say that he actually was the person that Shimon and Levi were testifying about, actually had done it prior to the time that they claim he did it. They're still going to have to be Mishal. He wasn't yet Mechoyev. Until there's a Gemar Din, he's not a Chiyev. But if he said a Gemar Din, if the Gemar Din was after the time that Shimon and Levi had claimed that there was a Gemar Din, he was already mechuyev. So once he's already mechuyev, their additional edus is not going to be Milo and Myrid, and therefore they're not going to be chayiv kasha zama. Okay, we'll stop over here. And we'll go.